Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Brian if you're new around here, and if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for being a subscriber, and I hope that you really enjoyed this video. So we're going to do a deep dive into the internal alpha for Throne and Liberty, and I've got hands-on information for you about this game, and if you guys have additional questions that this video doesn't answer, sound off below so we can do a follow-up video. So if you guys have yet to hit subscribe, you have yet to hit that like button, do so specifically on this video, because I don't think you're going to get this information from anywhere else out on the internet, at least for a couple of days. So, do I know? Have I seen? Yes. And this game is amazingly beautiful. Amazingly beautiful. If you take nothing away from this game, if you take nothing away from this video, there's going to be a lot of you who get a lot of excitement out of this. There's a lot of fun things you're going to like. There's going to be a handful of you that there's going to be things in this video that you don't like. I would please encourage you to listen to every section of this video, because these systems are all connected. And it's in that connection and in that excitement that I think there's a lot that you really will be excited for. But if there's anything that stands out, we can always debate the good and the bad of this video and of this information. So while I will not be revealing my sources, I do thank you guys so much, if you are listening, for working with me on this to bring you guys what is Throne and Liberty. This is not going to have any spoilers. We're not going to talk about the story, but we will talk about combat, dungeons, PvP, leveling, skills, abilities, and the question, what kind of combat system is this? So let's dive in and let's have some fun. First and foremost, the alpha was 2 weeks long, and when it comes down to it, I asked, how does the game feel? And they said they very much enjoyed it. They played the whole 2 weeks, only really taking off a kind of a small part during that experience. And the world is absolutely huge, and the mobs for each zone are actually based off of that level of the zone. They don't change to you, the player. The zones are kind of segmented based off of that. The day-night weather system felt awesome. It did take a little bit of a learning curve, as they would run in with a quest to try and maybe kill some spiders, and the spiders apparently only spawned at night. Thought that was really interesting. So while this is an alpha, I think the important thing from here on is that all of this is still subject to change. The development of this game is still going on. So by the time you get your hands on with the game, with an upcoming global beta, some of this stuff might have changed by then. So just note that you don't need to be worried about anything I share. This should hopefully just be for your knowledge, your excitement, etc. So the open world is seamless. There are 0 loading screens. You can fast travel at any point. You also have a home base that you can return to. The coolest feature that they thought of was the morphing system. You actually morph into a mount itself. There's 3 different types: a swimming morph, a running morph, and what we're calling a gliding morph. Because I asked, could you fly upwards? And they couldn't recall. In fact, they don't believe you can actually fly upwards because you do have the grappling, but the transformations themselves are seamless as well. You can easily grapple, then into a morph, then into a fight, back into a morph, and keep on going. So they felt like the flow of combat and the flow of movement felt really, really good. And personally speaking, regarding gliding, I think gliding's fine in MMOs. When it comes to flying in MMOs, that's a whole different bag of, problems, so to speak. So I'm glad to see that from this perspective, but we'll see if that ends up changing at some point in the future. I love how seamless he talked about and showed off that it was going from A to B to C in these different kind of modes. In terms of that, like I said, you can quick travel at any time. It costs gold, which is the in-game currency of the game. There is a premium currency that maybe we'll just call gems for the time being. And obviously you can also get some of those premium currencies just by actually playing the game as well. So it's not locked behind opening your wallet. You can earn premium currency in this game. The combat system, you can actually have up to 6 people in a group. And this is important because when we get into the dungeons, that's going to make sense. Now, regarding leveling, there's 2 types. You have your character level and you have your weapon mastery system. These are separate things. Weapons get experience from killing things. Makes sense. Your player gets experience from quests and also killing things. Now, in this test, and they said the progression felt very, very slow. Maybe this is because people weren't doing contracts, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But overall, the progression felt generally pretty slow, and they felt like this was kind of maybe a hypothesis to start to get that kind of feedback of how people are progressing through the game. Obviously, this is just data points at this point in time. Personally speaking, I don't mind slow progression systems. I like when games take a little bit of time. I know we've got the model of MMO that's really about getting everybody to the level cap, because that's where they say the game truly begins. But when you slow down the progression system, you have a lot of opportunity to play in the game and the world itself. But I'd love to know what you think about that. And who knows if that will end up sticking with the main game. Now, they, in terms of it, like they said that the full English audio has not yet been finished. That doesn't surprise me. This was an alpha, and I think that's essentially kind of an important thing. The game is still being worked on, being developed, which in the last video we talked about how second half 2023 feels probably about right. So they're still working through the game, getting it ready, getting it live, getting it tested. So I'll be sure to keep you guys up to date. Be sure to subscribe for Throne and Liberty videos like this one. Anyhow, if you hit that like button yet, it does really help me out, by the way. I do a very bad job at asking for it. YouTube reminds me all the time. And so maybe I can actually do a good job on this one specifically. So in terms of the combat, they say you actually start off with 4 different abilities. And I saw the controller UI setup, which kind of makes me feel like Final Fantasy XIV to a degree. And hopefully we'll be able to get the ability to customize that even more. But you get like 4 abilities. It's like you hold down the right bumper and then ABXY. Is going to how you use those skills, and then you can hold down like right trigger to use like ABXY for your items and potions and things like that. My personal preferences, I hope that's swappable. Left trigger also had buttons that were configured to it. Keyboard and mouse obviously plays like you would expect, and it feels very comfortable. When it comes to your cooldowns, they're actually independent per skill. No global cooldown here. So you can also switch weapons, but there's no auto switching of weapons. So you could actually have 4 skills because like on weapon A and 4 skills on weapon B, and you can use skill A, skill B, skill C, skill D, swap to weapon 2, and then use 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and then you could go back to your weapon, or you could do weapon 1, ability 1 and 2, and then switch to weapon 2, use their other abilities, and kind of make your own combos, so to speak. And be wary of the word combo. That's my word. That's not necessarily how it's all set up. But when it comes down to it, no cooldown. So you can, and your cooldowns are cooling down even if you're not on that weapon. So it's not like you swap back to that weapon and then you still have to wait the theoretical 10 or 15 seconds for that skill. You can actually have 2 different skill sets, meaning you can have like the staff, for example, takes like it takes both hands. So you have like your main hand, off hand. If you think about it, weapon 1, weapon 2. The staff would actually use both of those. You can also then swap to another set of weapons. And so as a part of your build and your character, you can have basically 4 weapons. You have your offhand and main hand, and then you can swap it again to your others. So at least that's how I understood it. I did ask for clarification. That is what they communicated. So we'll see if that ends up being how it is at launch, but that is something I think pretty exciting when it comes down to it. They said there were extra slots for more abilities. This might be something that unlocks later in the game, but based off the UI, it seems like you obviously learn more than just the 4 abilities, but as a part of that, they are based off your weapon mastery, and that is going to be how that functions. In terms of that, like they also had a wand and a grimoire, and so that would be 1 weapon in each hand. And basically, so far, the healing is set up for both the wand and the grimoire, where the staff was more focusing on offense. And like I said, we're calling them presets. So you have your like preset A, preset B, which each preset has a main and offhand weapon, or if it's a 2-handed weapon, then that's going to be how it is. Now, for the abilities, they are assigned to each set of weapons. So let's say you have one preset that has daggers and another preset that has daggers. You can actually have 2 different skill sets for the 2 different presets, if that makes any kind of sense. So it's based off your preset that is where your skills are assigned. So you have a lot of flexibility there. The total number of weapons in the alpha was unsure of, but they said the weapons are really cool looking, especially with the rarity. And my voice almost failed me there a little bit. But obviously the rarities go from gray, green, blue, and purple. They say for blue and purples, you're going to need schematics, which sounds like blueprints. And they believe these are dropped off the world bosses. And we do not know if these are tradable at this time. We do know that Bind on Equip is confirmed for the game, and players are also going to be able to get cute little pets that you unlock via quests, or you can purchase them. All pets have 1 standard ability, and a second unique ability as well. So your pet will heal you as a part of its standard ability with an item that you purchase called World Leaves. This is something that is going to be used as soon as you fall below 75%, and we will feed you a World Leaf, which will cure you around 100 HP like every couple of seconds, or I don't know the exact timing, but ultimately that's just going to be a nice little bit of passive healing. Auto battle is also confirmed to be in this game, but it's incredibly weak, and it's getting interesting here. I know if that frustrates you, bear with me through this section because there's some really cool stuff right after this. When you go and do auto combat, you might be doing battling against enemies maybe that are 5 levels below you. But if you leave it up at night, which you can just leave it up auto battling at night, you will die because you're going to run out of those World Leaves. So the more that you fight people that are your level, you're going to die often if you're actually in auto battle. So it is a system that's there, and I want to talk to you guys more about it maybe in a follow-up video because I have some thoughts that I want to share. Maybe we'll talk about it later in this video as well. But you can also set up rules for your auto battle, what kind of enemies you're looking for, your loot priority. A lot of effort and detail actually went into this system. You also have auto pathing between quests. However, there's things like mines or something like that in the world. For example, there's like eggs in the world, and if you accidentally hit an egg, every bird in that area is going to come after you. So there's no winning. There's no like auto battle forever win victory, on your own, unless you're very well prepared and maybe fighting in lower level areas. But in terms of traversing and these are systems that do exist. This game also is tab targeting, but like with auto battle and with the systems in place, it basically kind of handles targeting maybe for you. It's very seamless in terms of this, but you can also swap between the enemies by holding down like right bumper and using the joystick, for example, on controller. There is a base auto attack. So your skills and your abilities do things. There is a base auto attack, and also not all the abilities actually root you in place. I know this was a concerning discussion that people are having. Some abilities are actually channeled, which will root you, and some abilities allow you to move. And some skills are actually movement-based skills like a charge-based attack as well. So if you kind of figure out your timing in combat, you can actually kite enemies around. And so far, the level cap is unknown. The highest person visible in the alpha was in the level 60 range. And they do believe that fishing is in the game. We do know crafting and gathering is in the game, but they didn't actually enjoy it as much as they enjoy New World. We talked about how New World is basically RuneScape for adults. And so this is a different kind of crafting system. And they do confirm there is no auto gathering, and that will actually inflate the value of gathering items higher because your materials and rare mats and things like that drop off of farming enemies, either manually or through auto battle, are going to have a lower level value. But we're going to talk about the economy more here in a bit. So there's also a codex. So it's going to let you know what all possible drops from the different creatures that you've run into. Inventory is also weight based, and how much you can carry is dependent on certain attributes. So you can increase your carrying capacity based off of your different attributes. And when you look at the inventory screen, it will tell you kind of your breakdown by weight. Your craftable and your material items and things like that are all very low weight stuff. So you can actually kind of set up your auto loot rules along the lines, along your weights, along what you're looking for. Honestly, it seems like a very interesting system. And I want to talk a little bit about that actually right now. In terms of this, I can understand the argument against it. The argument for this is fascinating. First and foremost, obviously this is going to inflate player numbers and player played hours, because if you go to work or if you want to just let it grind it out at night, this does kind of try and battle against the idea that you need to play this game as a job. One of the common concepts and frustrations with MMOs has been, yes, there's people who are botting and cheating. This kind of opens up that to everybody. Not that this is cheating, but this is botting for everybody without having to risk your account, risk your computer, or violate the terms and stuff like that. So ultimately everybody has access to it. So instead of, kind of the haves and the have-nots, which is what MMOs always fight against, this is basically everybody has it. So you can choose to use it if you need to use it. But not all systems are, gameable in this way. So it's going to be interesting to see. Will people try to game the auto gathering, for example? Probably, because this is an online game. That's the way it is. All right. The other side of this, like I said, is that player numbers are going to be higher. And so when in terms of Steam charts, we'll just see like, oh, it's a lot of bots. It's also free to play. this will put the game, especially for a long time, way up there. It's going to keep it up there. It's going to have the hours played up there. So in terms of calculating the average amount of playtime about video games, which for the standard gamer is roughly 7.3 hours per week, I kind of inflate that kind of to 10 to 12 for MMO players. This will blow that through the roof, because if everybody can have the ability to auto battle and auto farm, then that's going to be happening quite a bit. We talked, like I said, about controller. The controller felt very enjoyable. Overall, it flows incredibly well. I felt like it was set up like Final Fantasy XIV, holding down the trigger buttons and pressing ABXY, and then obviously not having as many abilities. So it seems like that hybrid action combat tab targeting system that does, and people seem to say that it feels pretty freaking good. So like we said, top-notch graphics and cutscenes, that they've done a masterful job. And then we talked about the guild system. The guild system is where you can actually give materials from higher level areas to the guild. You can even charge people in your guild. You can list them up there for free. You can give it to somebody random, or you can list it for a little bit of a price. So every guild almost has its own economy, and there's a bigger, wider player-driven economy as well. But these mats help you build out new gear, unlock new skills, etc. And being a part of a guild early on is actually very super helpful. We talked about the open world dungeons, and they didn't really like the open world dungeons. They didn't really know if it was done way too early, etc., because the first one unlocks when you're around level 20. If you just run in there with your group of people, the deeper that you go, the harder the enemies and the better your loot will get. Enemies are actually super hard in the dungeon. But here's where it gets interesting too. Dungeons have a currency. You get this currency from killing mobs in the open world. If you have 0 currency, for example, you might just get 50 experience for a kill. However, if you have a bunch of currency, it's going to eat through that currency and you're going to get multiples of XP instead. So by farming out in the open world and then going into a dungeon might be a very beneficial way of getting lots of leveling and experience for you as a player. Regarding PvP, they stated that they didn't do too much PvP, more focused on the PvE side of things. Different zones can be actually fought over by the different guilds, but it doesn't really notify you if you actually enter these zones. The AoE abilities were used on a boss, and it didn't look like it hurt another player, but after the world boss, that other player turned red, and you could actually do damage to the other player. So it felt like the whole world was open PvP, but boss fights might flag it off until the fight is over. That's my speculation based on what he said, but you could accidentally hit somebody and then they would turn red, and then you would have to decide if you want to fight them back. So let me know what you think about that. Then regarding the economy, NPCs can actually buy your junk off of you. There is also a market that you can sell your wares. No idea if the market board supports buy orders. And the final thing of note, the character creation they said was wild and amazing. The neat thing, you can actually take a picture of your own face and make a character based off of you, or perhaps somebody else. And then we laughed and speculated, how about if we're going to see anybody's private parts or anything like that? And they say none of that, so we'll have to see if they have a good algorithm to make sure that people aren't putting things up there that shouldn't be up there. Anyway, guys, that's what we talked about. There's a lot of information that I just dumped on you, a lot of things to confirm, and I hope that you got something good out of this video. There's another part to this video, though, and it's your questions being answered. So if you have the time, sound off in the comments with whatever question that you have that this didn't answer. And maybe we'll get back with my contacts, and maybe we'll get you guys some information ahead of the Korean beta at towards the end of this month. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the video and you haven't done so already, and you feel like it earns it, that like button will help me out dramatically. Commenting and also checking out the Discord and being a part of this community is also welcome and encouraged. And also discussion is also welcome and encouraged here. Just remember to keep it respectful in the comments, as gamers, we're passionate people. We are passion-driven folks. Anyway, on that note, sounds like my alarm says it's time for me to get this video out to you. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But until then, take care.